Hello, this is Yrly, the environmental educator. That COP29 summit just ended, and it ended with a $300 billion climate deal yearly. And right here, pay up. That's what the small developing countries are demanding from the larger industrialized countries. Even at that, they say that the small industrialized countries say that the deal is too little, too late. Because $300 billion a year isn't enough for them. So they reached a deal in Azerbaijan. The wealthy, historic emitters will provide help to poorer nations transition to cleaner energy and adapt to global warming. So right now, the larger countries, the established countries, have to help smaller countries transition to cleaner energy. That's the agreement they made. All these people, all these proven complete failures get together and they can never decide on anything, but they took days and days to decide on this. So the developed countries must provide at least $300 billion per year by 2035. And that's $100 billion more than is currently required under a previous agreement that runs until next year. But it falls way short of the $500 billion that developing countries had demanded at the start of the negotiations. So that money will come from a wide variety of sources, including government budgets, which means your tax dollars, or in the case of America, currency collapsing debt, private sector investment, and other financing. It also cites alternative sources, a reference to potential global taxes under discussion on the aviation and maritime industries. Oh, and the rich. But normal people don't use aviation or maritime industries, all that shipping across waters. So whatever they can tax you on, they're going to tax you on. And I guess right now that's where they feel they can get away with it without people yelling too much. The hope is that the money from developed countries will help boost private investments to reach an ambitious goal written into the deal of delivering at least $1.3 trillion per year by the next decade. These are all slush funds. Money just gets moved around and then not accounted for, but they're hoping that this is going to solve problems. It's not going to. So right here, it says that developed nations would be taking the lead in providing that $300 billion, implying that others could join. The text encourages developing nations to make contributions that would remain voluntary. So we got a big slush fund going on here, people. $300 billion a year that comes from you, essentially. But now the poor nations, they say it is too little, too late. The richer countries have promised to raise their funding to help poorer countries fight climate change to a record $300 billion a year, but the deal has come under criticism from the developing world. So, of course, it falls well short of the $1.3 trillion developing countries were pushing for. But they say the promise of more money is a recognition that developing nations bear a disproportionate burden from climate change, but have also historically contributed the least to climate change. But I thought that this was for mostly a transition to clean energy and then to adapt to global warming. But now this makes it sound like adapting to global warming is what the developed countries consider to be the top part of it, because they are burdened from climate change. I'm pretty sure if climate change is real, everybody all over the planet is burdened by it. The head of the UN climate body, Simon Steele, conceded that the agreement was far from perfect. No country got everything they wanted, and we leave with a mountain of work still to do. So they all got together for this big conference and basically achieved not much of anything because they still have a mountain of work to do. All these conferences are worthless. They achieve nothing every year. The developing countries call it a paltry sum. It's abysmally poor is what they describe the $300 billion a year they're going to get. They say the alliance of small island states Their rep said, "Our islands are sinking. Can you expect us to go back to the women, men, and children of our countries with a poor deal?" The funds pledged are expected to help poorer countries move away from fossil fuels and invest in renewable energy, such as wind and solar. So again, we're supposed to be getting them renewable energy, but they're talking about it that this is to deal with climate change because their islands are sinking. And they can't go back to their people and explain to them that they don't have money to deal with that. Climate charities have criticized the agreed deal. A spokesperson for Extinction Rebellion, who will not allow solutions, said that it had failed. All of these conferences fail. Decades of these conferences have all produced nothing but huge global failure, proven by the fact that they're still having conferences screaming for solutions. Friends of the Earth, which won't allow solutions, head of policy said that in terms of climate leadership, the planet is still light years away from where we were at last year's meeting in Dubai. They never accomplish anything. The latest international talks failed to solve the question of climate finance. Well, they also failed to solve the question of just solutions. But, again, they've kicked the can down the road. That's what all of these do. And then even if they come up with an agreement, it never gets enacted on year after year after year. So they say that reaching this deal is a sign that countries are still committed to working together on climate, but with the largest economy on the planet now unlikely to pay a part, it will become harder to meet the multi-billion-dollar goal. And that's because they say Trump will not pay a penny. So now it's going to be harder because if the U.S. probably isn't paying the overwhelming majority of that $300 billion, it's going to be harder for them to reach their goal. So as I just said, no goals even get reached year after year after year. Why don't we just get solutions and cut out all of these slush funds? But Trump won't give you solutions either. Promise you that. But the UK Energy Secretary said that it's not everything we or others wanted, but it's a step forward. So these islands that are sinking, these countries that are sinking, just don't worry, guys. We made a step forward. This is all just ridiculousness. This is all just theater. Year after year after year, including the journalists that go and cover it. And right now, people, you're on the hook for $300 billion a year because you're horrible. You live horrible lives that are affecting people in the third world, and it's time for you to pay up. I don't think the third world has gotten the word that industrialized countries don't have any money. So, theater people. And why do we have all this theater? Oh, that's right. Who runs these conferences? The United Nations. And they have refused, along with everybody else, the solutions the world needs since November 93. And the UN was one of the first people I started asking to get solutions implemented after the environmental educator started. So stay tuned, people.